And we're so pleased to kick off our second hour by bringing on the play-by-play man for Notre Dame, Tony Simeone, who joins us now to preview this matchup between the Irish and the Orange. Tony, thanks for finding a few minutes for us. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. And I know it's basketball season out there in Syracuse, but still some time to talk football before it gets going in a couple days.
Yeah, that injury to Steve Angeli forced everyone here to kind of turn the page to basketball a little sooner than maybe they wanted to. But, we've talked a lot this week, and I'm sure you guys have out there as well, about this whole battle between Notre Dame and Miami. And there's a lot of people up in arms saying, Miami beat them head-to-head. Notre Dame seems like a different team since that game. Can you speak to, I guess, this winning streak that they're on and how things have changed since those losses to A&M and Miami?
Yeah, it's definitely the conversation topic around college football, right? I think that Notre Dame has been outstanding really since the second half of their third game against Purdue. From their standpoint, they've been a different team defensively in particular. I think over their last 7 games in total, they've allowed less than 12 points per game. They're up to 17 interceptions, taking the ball away at a high rate. They just weren't doing that the first 2 games against Miami and Texas A&M, who, frankly, are probably the 2 best opponents that they've seen so far this year. And then the conversations about how that was 2.5 months ago and they're maybe a different team now. So, I can cut this a million different ways on what really should happen at the end of the year when the dust settles. But to your point, last 8 games, really last 7 games, they've looked like a much better team. They certainly are one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion. They're definitely capable of being one of the 12 in that bracket. And I think when you listen to Marcus Freeman, they're just going to go out and try to take care of their business week in and week out and let the committee kind of figure out where everybody plays when the playoff starts.
Trying to take care of business, and you have Syracuse left and Stanford left, and obviously you're not playing in a conference championship game. But how important is it to, you got to go out and hammer these teams to make it look like you're one of these top 12 teams?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and especially because they don't play in a conference. They play a lot of ACC teams. They played Pittsburgh last week. Miami's going to play Pitt here in the last couple weeks. The committee, I'm sure, and fans are going to look at those common results. So you just want to beat up on everyone you can. You want to beat up on these ACC teams when you have Syracuse and Stanford at the end to say, hey, if you're going to try to put an ACC team in over Notre Dame, here's why you should not. And it is going to matter. Style points matter. The reason they seem like an improved team is because not just that they've won the 8 games, but the way they've won them, the dominant fashion in which they've been able to go out on both sides of the ball. They haven't won a game by less than 10 points in this 8-game winning streak. So it's not just the fact that they're winning by wide margins. They want to keep that up. I think that if they do win big in these last 2, the committee is going to keep them where they are. If you have to skate by each of these next 2 weeks, I don't know what's going to happen, but you certainly at least give the committee and those that are evaluating this team a reason to second guess maybe the way they've evaluated them over the past 2 months. So, yeah, I think the point of emphasis is not just to win, but to win as big as you can here in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and along those lines, Syracuse just played Miami at Miami, and Miami struggled with them in the first half, ended up winning by 28. Is that kind of the benchmark, maybe the unspoken benchmark this week is got to beat them by more than 28 because it's, again, common opponent. It was, it's a road game for Syracuse in both cases. Does it feel like, they've got to win by more than 4 touchdowns to kind of maintain that spot ahead of Miami, or at least, one of the talking points?
Yeah, I don't know if Marcus Freeman would tell you that that's what they've talked about behind the scenes, but I'm sure that it's on the minds of the players and staff that they need to win big. I don't think you can go into a game and say, hey, we got to win by 28. Last week, they were up 28 against Pitt, and then Pittsburgh called a timeout and ran a play with 4 seconds left, scored their only offensive touchdown of the game on the final play of the game, and that makes that now a 22-point margin as opposed to 28. And so if everyone has not watched the games, they're going to look at the Miami and Pitt result going forward and say, hey, did you win by 22 or more? It's a little bit silly when we think of it in that term, but big picture, I think you just got to win convincingly. And if the margin is 3 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, or you're up by 4 and there's a late touchdown that trims them, who knows what it's going to be. I think you just want to try to make the statement to the college football powers that be that this is not a close game, that you win handily, and there's no questions about this team rolling towards the playoff like they did last year.
quarterback play goes such a long way in college football. And, for Syracuse, Steve Angeli goes down and the season goes into a tailspin. You're starting a true freshman in C.J. Carr, and you talked about those first couple of games and the loss to Miami and Texas A&M. I thought he played well. How has his game matured as this season has gone on? And can he be a guy to lead this team back to playing for a national title?
Yeah, I think CJ Carr is the real deal. When you look at the first two games, I think they were kind of easing him into it, and he was ready to go. And I think he and Mike Denbrock, offensive coordinator, learned pretty quickly that he's the real deal. I think he's one of the most skilled quarterbacks already in the country. When you look at the kinds of throws he's able to make, nobody's made throws here in South Bend like the way that he has made them this year since maybe Jimmy Clausen. And if you want to debate that, you got to go back to Brady Quinn. I think he's the most talented quarterback probably in the last 2 decades since Brady Quinn was here. And he, as you said, quarterback play goes a long way. They've got maybe the 2 best backs in the country. And when you can stack the quarterback the way that you have with CJ this year, it just gives them a different dynamic. Last year with Riley Leonard, who was the transfer from Duke, he was an awesome quarterback for that team last year. His running ability is what set him apart, but they didn't really have the ability to push the ball down the field the way CJ does. He can throw it from one hash to the far sideline at a really high rate that you don't see from a lot of quarterbacks, let alone guys that have only been on campus for maybe a year and a half like he has. So I think that he is the primary reason, if you look at Notre Dame, that they think if they can get into the bracket, they have as good a chance as they had, if not a better chance than they did last year, to get to the title game and win that title game, because they just have a dynamic in the passing game that they have not had here in a long time. You can debate when it was, but it certainly feels like a decade, if not 2, since they've had the ability to push the ball downfield the way he can.
Is Jeremiah Love the best running back you've seen in the country?
Oh,
those runs have been unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. I think he's the best back in the country. It's not even close. I think that he's the best back that's been at Notre Dame maybe since, Jerome Bettis. He is unbelievable. I think that I hope if Syracuse fans are watching, obviously, as you mentioned, with Steve going down this year, it's a bummer the way the season's played out. I would really focus your eyes on Jeremiah Love. Some of the moves he makes, the hurdles, the spin move last week against Pitt, that all really is what grabs your attention. But watch at the end of the runs that are between the tackles, or if he gets to the second level, it is not a lot of going down to the turf for a guy that certainly has a lot to protect. The shoulder comes out. He lays into you. He punishes linebackers at the ends of runs. And in pass protection, he's outstanding. He's been a lead blocker as well for C.J. Carr on some quarterback design runs in the red zone throughout the year. So the list goes on and on. He's the complete package. He's going to be a great pro whenever he goes to the next level. And I know here in South Bend, we're soaking it in, because I haven't seen a player in South Bend like him in my time here. And I just don't know when we'll see one again. Because he is truly one of one when it comes to the skill set.
Put it this way, the last 3 weeks, the runs against Boston College, Navy, and Pittsburgh, right after it, I had to text Steve literally 2 seconds after, did you see this run by Love? Did you see this run?
Yeah,
he is definitely the real deal.
Well, and the other thing is, if those first 2 games go, if they win both, let's say, and they're 10-0, I think he is the Heisman frontrunner. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to get dinged for those 2 losses, but the highlights and the numbers, I think, are good enough to be in contention. It's just, unfortunately, they dropped those first 2 games, and I think it's tough to win it at the record Notre Dame is at right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. Marcus Freeman earlier this week, Tony, spoke very glowingly of Steve Angeli, and I know you had a chance to cover him out there, and he led the nation in passing yards through 4 games, and then unfortunately went down with injury. I guess my question to you is this: a lot of SU fans are pinning their hopes to the next 2 years to Steve Angeli. What have you seen out of him, not only at Notre Dame but through the first 4 games this year? I'm curious what you think of his game, and if it translates to being, a difference maker at the quarterback position for this program for the next couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the thing that impressed me most about Steve when he was here, and I got a chance to be in a lot of meetings with him and hear him talk about the quarterback position, is he was always ready. He was always well schooled on the offense, on what they wanted to accomplish offensively with him at quarterback. And he was in a tough spot. I mean, he got recruited here. Notre Dame brought in a transfer in Sam Hartman, and they brought in a transfer in Riley Leonard. And then he battled with C.J. Carr in this past spring. And it was at least clear enough to him that he wasn't going to necessarily win that job, that he had to go find somewhere else to play. And the staff here loves him. I think everyone at Notre Dame loves him. And what we saw last year in the Orange Bowl, I think, is the most impressive thing. And you mentioned the numbers this year. I think everyone was thrilled to see the way he started the season at Syracuse. It's a huge bummer that he got hurt. But to me, to come into the Orange Bowl with your team down 10-0, you haven't taken really a competitive snap for the most part all year. It's the biggest game Notre Dame's played in 3 decades at that point. And he has to put together a drive, 2-minute drill to get them 3 points. And it could seem like, an insignificant play, but it was a huge difference maker. It allowed Notre Dame to tie it up with their first drive in the second half. That was all I needed to know. And we knew Steve Angeli was a great quarterback, at least as far as a guy in the room that was ready and well-schooled. We didn't know what it was going to look like under the lights. And so when he put that drive together, I was pretty confident if he was forced to go somewhere else, he'd be great there. I think he proved it in those first few games with you guys. So, yeah, if I was a Syracuse fan, I'd be fired up about Steve Angeli. I think he has the tools, he has the understanding, and I think that I'm super confident in what's to come for him going forward with Syracuse.
Tony, real quick before we let you go, very well said about Steve Angeli. As for tomorrow, do you envision, what would have to happen for this to be a close game in the second half from a Syracuse perspective? I mean, you've seen Notre Dame game in and game out. Do they have any weaknesses that Syracuse might be able to exploit?
Yeah, well, looking at the numbers, obviously, since in the 6-game losing streak, points have been tough to come by for Syracuse, and the defense is really good now. So I think what you're hoping for, if you're a Syracuse fan, is maybe a couple of bad throws from C.J. Carr. I just raved about him. He is coming off his first ever 2-interception game against Pittsburgh. One of them was a pick six, a ball that I think he knows he probably shouldn't have thrown that way. So if you're a Syracuse fan, you're hoping, okay, maybe he can throw it away a couple times. Notre Dame's red zone offense, frankly, has not been great. They have a few fumbles in the red zone. So you're looking for maybe a bad pick here or there, a red zone fumble, and suddenly they've left maybe 14, 17 points on the board. And if you go back, I know Notre Dame's defense feels like a new unit. I think they have turned the page on those first couple games. All that said, early in the year, they gave up some really big chunk plays in the passing game. Now, I know that the starter has only 7 completions in his career. It's going to be tough going on the road here at Notre Dame Stadium, but it's not as if you can't hit him in the secondary. So I think that if you can hit a couple big plays, maybe get a couple beneficial flags, CJ makes 1 or 2 bad throws, and you get the red zone fumble, you're in the game. Now, I know I've laid out a lot there, but that's what you're looking for. Those are the areas that, frankly, every team has their blemishes, right? And if you get them to all show up at the same time, that'd obviously be a nightmare for everybody here at Notre Dame and South Bend. But that's the recipe, and it's just to say that those things have happened. It's not as if this is a perfect team. No team at this point in the year is, and I think that's the path you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a reason you're a 35-point underdog, right? You're going to need a lot to go right. You're going to need to catch a lot of breaks, and Syracuse is going to have Notre Dame certainly help them out big time if this is going to be any semblance of a close game going into the second half. Tony, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Have a great call tomorrow, and hopefully we can talk again down the road.
Yeah, thank you guys. Anytime, looking forward to it. And then, hey, Notre Dame basketball's out there in Vegas too, so I think both teams are playing Kansas back-to-back days. We'll see who gets it done out in Vegas. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I know we're looking forward to that. Tony Simeone joining us here on the show, Notre Dame play-by-play. We'll take a time out here. We'll get to today's business on the other side. We are back after this.